Shalom, tada. It's always wonderful to come home to IJS. It's wonderful. Such a source of gratitude, bracha. Thank you, Josh. And brachot habaot, barachim habaim lukulam. It's great to be back with all of you. Some familiar faces, new faces. And I'd like to dive right into the text that I want to share, which will be a lead-in to today and this evening's sit. I'm in Yerushalayim, so it's already dark and late. But I want to preface by asking the rhetorical question: how do we respond when faced with trauma, suffering, or health-related challenges, whether they be physically, emotionally, mentally related challenges, or also when we are celebrating, when we are feeling and sensing simcha and osher, joy? Well, there are many different responses. No one really knows how the next one exactly is experiencing whatever it is they are. But we see in our tradition, one way of responding is to be in conversation with the divine, to have a sense, to cultivate a sense of the presence of the divine. It may soften, it may help us lean into the pain, the suffering, with a little bit more ease. If not, some of us believe that it's possible, but we don't experience the presence of the divine. And then there are others yet who it's not even on their bucket list. Some people are so far away that they're not even really feeling their own distance from the divine. There's no guarantee. We really don't know for sure what will happen if we do this or if we don't do that. The PSS and the Rebbe has a teaching in Derech HaMelech, which he taught in Warsaw in the late 1920s on Rosh Hashanah, that gives us one way, a lens into how he viewed when we experience Hester Panim, the concealment. It's the book of Esther coming out, concealment. The Hester Panim, the concealment of the face, the divine face. He shared this on Rosh Hashanah and from Derech HaMelech. I'm sharing with you the English translation due to the time. I would like to, at another time, in another venue, perhaps learn it in depth in the Hebrew as well. But here we go. He starts by saying that the person who pays attention, the source sheet, I don't know what happened to it. It's coming now. Here we go. There it is. Okay. The person who pays attention, noten lev, which in Hebrew literally means to give the heart. You're putting your heart into the situation. And what's the situation here? The fact that the eternal is within, the person believes that. And yet, hidden, mustar. Even if this hiddenness is due to a dulled or insensitive heart, which is called tintum halev, or a state of lowliness where a person is not cultivating sensitivity to the spirit and to spirituality. Nevertheless, when that person gazes and reflects, mistakel in Hebrew, at length on this state, believing that there is the divine presence, but not experiencing the divine presence, there is a hester panim. A pain will be awakened and stirred in the person's heart, and the person may cry out as a result. Then, finally, the sha'arei halev, the gates of the person's heart, will open for the person. And then the light of the eternal, the light of the creator, the light of the divine will now goleh, migaleh, will become revealed to the person. So what was a situation where there was a hester panim, because of paying attention, which is being mindful, it's cultivating mindfulness. This is what he talked about in Warsaw before World War II. Just by paying attention to what I'm not experiencing causes me to feel brokenhearted. And that's the entryway into opening the heart. Now he goes a little bit further, though. What about the person for whom the state of hiddenness, this hester panim, is mustar. The very state of hiddenness is hidden from the person. It's a hester nistar, whose mind, da'at, is torn apart, mamash tufa, and entangled, mesubechet, in foolishness, in shtuyot. And the person does not pay attention because of all the distractions, all the external noise around that may moshech, that may pull the person away from cultivating mindful practicing. So the person does not pay attention to that which is hidden, that which is nistar. The person does not cry out, so'ek. The person does not pay attention, does not open the gates of their heart. And in that way, the person will be punished. I want to suggest that what he means by the word punished is from the verse in Deuteronomy in 31:18, when there we learn that when we turn away, when we ponim, the word pana, when the nation pana, then the panim of God, and it's incredible to sense the nuance, the connection between the two, turning away and panim, pana, panim. God is saying, when you do that, I will surely hide my face. And in Hebrew, the word is haster astir. Now, in the literal, at first glance understanding, whenever two Hebrew words in biblical pasukim and verses share, a verse shares the same verb, but in different conjugated forms, we translate that as verily, very much. Not only will I hide, but I will surely hide. And that is a punishment. That's a consequence of feeling far. The hidden will be hidden, so much so that the person will not even realize and perceive that the divine presence is hidden from that person. So really how the PSS interprets this is the word haster would be the noun, the state of concealment. Astir, I will conceal. So the divine is saying, if you turn away from me, it's like if I turn away, I don't see you. It looks like it's an illusion that you're gone. And that's the punishment, that I actually begin to live an illusion. So I believe, and I'd like to suggest that mindfulness is the healing, the remedy, the cure for the Timtum Halev. The Baal Shem Tov asks, how is it possible that our Father, Ava Rachaman, the Merciful One, would want to turn away from his own beloved children to make himself as if she did not even wish to see us? That would be terrible for a parent to do that. And how would Bnei Yisrael be expected to survive if we never sensed the presence of the providence, of divine providence? And the Baal Shem Tov answered his own question with a remarkable insight. And I'm inviting you to open your hearts now, begin to settle in, scan your body, be sure that your posture is receptive to energy from above, down to the crown of your head, working below, throughout the soles of your feet, and that your soles of your feet are receiving energy from below, and it moves up and ascends through the palms of the hands up to the crown of the head. As you begin to settle into that embodied space, let us explore, what did the Baal Shem Tov say? There is no such thing as Hester Panim. It is only an illusion, the objective of which is for each of us to examine how we relate to the divine concealment. The PSSna urges us in B'nai Machshava Tova how essential it is in our practice to cultivate the behavior of searching for the hidden God, Ha'el Mistater. And when you search, where in fact will you find the divine? Within you. B'cha, b'chos vivotecha, and all around you. Let us move into our quiet moments together. I invite everyone to share 3 cycles of receiving the gift of life nishmat chayim, as we are being breathed into, gaze at that for a moment, the wonder, then return that to the Creator because it's not ours. We don't own it, it's on loan. And then at the end of the exhalation, also pause. And for a moment, be aware of not feeling breath. Let's share 3 cycles together. And perhaps the guiding contemplative question to move us through the practice is, what are we asking when we sense Hester Panim? We may ask, why is God doing this to me? Or, and I would like to suggest, why do I sense Hester Panim? Let us share together 3 cycles, then we'll move into Hashkata, to silence. As we're moving into our concluding 2 minutes, I would like to invite those with whom there is a resonance to transition briefly into a blessing practice. Invoke someone that you love, invoke their presence, see them in a visualization, someone that may need support, a little extra encouragement, some more inspiration to cultivate mindful practice, to honor their feelings rather than perhaps deny or run away from them, to honor and provide a platform for their thoughts rather than feel victimized by them. And pray for that person. Tell them in your prayers, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I want also you to experience the presence of the divine and not to have to live in the hester of the panim. Let us sit with that for another minute as we draw to our conclusion. And let us conclude together as we began by sharing one cycle of being breathed into, pausing, returning, and pausing. Toda, toda l'kulam, toda.
Yiscah, thank you so much for that practice. I encourage you to stick around if you can for sharing reflections and some conversation. But before we do that, if you're saying Kaddish today, you're welcome to join me in reciting Kaddish and also to put in the chat the name of anyone that you would like to share that you're remembering today, where you may be mourning their loss. And we'll put the text of Kaddish up on the screen. And you're welcome to unmute and join me in reciting Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadal
Shem Rabba
Me'alma Dura
Amen.
Ve'ela minhu yirchata v'shirata v'amiran be'amav Shlama Rabba Shemaya B'chayim Aminu Shema Yisrael Shalom B'rucham Ya'om Shalom
Ouch, ouch. Oh, my ankle just went weird. Ouch.
Okay, just gonna read. There we go. Okay. Thank you. So please feel invited to join us if you need to leave us. Tzedchem l'shalom. We wish you farewell and hope you'll come back. We'll be here again, same time, same channel tomorrow. So please join us. Yiscah, thank you so much. That was such a rich teaching and practice, and so appropriate for Purim coming up next week, and such a beautiful teaching of the Piazetzner. It made me think of there's a Netivot Shalom, a teaching that I like to teach about the seventh day of Pesach, where he says that if we don't have emunah, if we don't have the experience, the awareness, the trust in the divine presence, then we should have emunah that we have emunah, right? We should at least, that we can believe in ourselves, that we can believe in that possibility. And I thought there was something sort of an inversion of that I was hearing from you, of like there's this doubling of the absence that we can sometimes can feel. I'm curious for you, how have you found this teaching and this practice helpful in your own life? If there's any part of that you want to share, I'd be curious. And also to the group, of course, what questions or what experience did you have that were generated? Please share that in the chat. But I thought maybe we could open there.
Well, okay, sure. And thank you. I just also want to point out this week's Parsha in Tetzaveh, there's also a Hester Panim of Moshe. It's the only Parsha from the first introduction to Moshe in the book of Exodus and Shemot, in the Parshat Shemot, till the end of Devarim. This is the only Parsha where Moshe's name is not mentioned. And yet we know who God is talking to, you. And that's how I, myself, to answer your question, that's how I moved through a very serious space of Hester Panim for many, many years, when I was more immersed in the Haredi world. And pointing no fingers here, it was my own personal experience was that the deeper I moved into that world, the less and less I became aware of the divine presence of the Shekhinah. I was very aware of wanting to do everything right. And that's more of the external behavior through the Jewish law, through halakha, but it came at a cost. There was collateral damage to that dedication. And la'at, I began to lose the sense of awareness, but I didn't even know that I was losing that. I really feel that I became numb. I didn't want my heart to really open. And then the different events happened. I'm living in Jerusalem during a war that can do things to a person in 1991. And everything just like crashed. And I remember going to the wall and just weeping like a small child. And I felt the presence again. I heard the voice again. And I remembered that, and I continued on in a different way. I left that type of way of being Jewish to a different way of being Jewish. And that has more to do with cultivating practice and contemplative practice, reflecting on text. So I always reflect on Hester Panim, because there are times in the world that I live in, here in Israel, around in the globe, God, where did you go? Like, hello, you were here a second ago. But now I don't resort to how I used to feel. Why are you doing this to me? Which is why I've mentioned that in the beginning. It was that victimizing, that victimhood stance. I don't like not feeling your presence. I really don't like it. So what do I need to do? It's that turning. I find that in the Pasuk, so many people miss out on the second part of the verse. God says, I will surely hide my face because you have turned away from me. Well, if I turn my face away from you, Josh, I'm not going to see you. And I go, where'd Josh go? Josh doesn't love me anymore. It's where's my part in this? So that's how I return to that. But thank God, because of mindful practice and that dedication daily, I haven't gone back to being numb, to being distant. Hashem. And I bless that. I bless that for everyone, that everyone feels. Everyone feels.
It feels like you're also talking about, like the word attunement is one that comes up a lot, right? That, that there's this transmitter that's sort of broadcasting, and folks on most of the folks here are old enough to remember, what it was to have a radio and you had to tune in the radio. But there is that sort of fine attunement of like, I'm listening for, I know the wavelength is there, or maybe there's a different frequency now that, that I need to listen to or something, right? But there's a process of tuning in rather than saying, the station stopped broadcasting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I teach when I teach the PSSNA's 4-step meditation guide. I preface it with an introduction with the verse about Eliyahu Navi coming out of the cave, and there was all this drama around him. The winds were breaking down the boulders, breaking them apart. The earth was rumbling. The fires were ablaze, but he didn't sense the presence. And then everything quieted down. The kol d'mamadaka, the still small voice.
We have the still small voice.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really curious to hear from folks who are on the call about what was your experience with this practice? How did that, and what's your own experience with this issue of not sensing or feeling blocked, maybe even from sensing the presence and coming back to it or rediscovering it, retuning in a certain way. I tell the story. The earliest time I remember this happening for me was in college, in my senior year of college, and I had been, a stalwart at Minyan. I went every morning, right? And for a college student to go at 7 a.m. to Minyan is a big deal. But I've always been a morning person, even then. And I was religious about it. And then one day, the bottom just sort of fell out. I was davening, and I was like, "Oh my God, I don't believe anything that I'm saying." And I had no sense of like, who am I talking to right now? And I just turned and I left. And it was a moment of real sort of shattering. And it took me several weeks to sort of find my footing again and find my way back in. And when I was working in Hillel for a long time, I would say, you're paying far too much money for college not to provoke at least one quality existential crisis for you. I hope you have that experience, right? But how we both are open to those moments, right, and then we're able to find our way, back in. Is just so important. And so I'm really curious to hear from others, if any of these, how these stories resonate with you. Shira has a question. Listening for the voice of the divine seems to create an image of the divine being external to me and challenges my sense that we are all part of the divine. How do you, that's a beautiful question, Shira. How do you experience that? Yiscah, you wanna respond to that?
Sure, yes. What a wonderful, wonderful question, because in fact, how I experience cultivating mindfulness and contemplative practice is dafka to go in. I don't expect to hear the voice, maybe perhaps the way Moshe heard it at the burning bush. These are external, like the drama of when Eliyahu Navi came out of the cave, quite external. That doesn't mean it's less than anything, but it's not internal. The work I cultivate, very influenced over the past 12 years by the PSSNA Rebbe, is to lower the volume because there is a transmission. Actually, the Baal Shem Tov teaches, part of the Chassidut, and now it's moved into Neo-Chassidism, is to reclaim we have a sense of inner prophecy. It's not nevuah to predict the future. It's not like the classical prophets like Yeshayahu or the others. But we have a spark of prophecy where we can receive a direct transmission. And that's within. And that's the Shekhinah. That's the divine presence. She resides within me. As we learned last week, we have the invitation to build the home within so she feels comfortable. Mm-hmm. So my experience is not to expect, nor hear, nor wait for thunder and lightning to grab me. And not that if it did, I would object. If I saw a bush that's not burning, that's not consumed, I would stop. If I saw water that parted and let me walk through, I would say, thank you. That's right. but I'm not going to wait for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going. That is external. I make a decision with, like the PSS narrates in Chovot Talmidim. It's a decision. You have b'chira chofshit to decide to do the work within. That's where I am able. That's where my Creator has invited me to do the work, to peel away the external layers. It's like peeling an orange. We buy an orange, we're glad there's a peel. It protects the fruit. But when we get home from the shuk, from the market, and we want to eat it, we peel it away. It served its purpose. So all those externalities that keep us surviving have a purpose. And then it's time to peel it away and do the inner work. And that's how I experience when I do hear the Kol D'Mamad Daka. When I don't, to answer the prior question, I now see it as a sign. It's a moment where, oh, why am I feeling hiddenness, sensing hiddenness? Because God is inviting me to go deeper.
Mm.
The divine is inviting me to go deeper because I need to go deeper in order to move through that cloud, that haze of not sensing the divine presence. It's not a punishment. It's not a consequence of me doing something wrong. It's an invitation to go deeper.
I would also say, I think it's really beautiful. And I also think it's an invitation to go deeper. And it's also to have some compassion for ourselves that, like, there are going to be cloudy days too, right? It's not, the sun is not always shining. It's not always, we're not wired that way. And our tradition teaches that too, that, if we were that, we'd be angels, right? That's the status. But human beings, we get glimpses, we get moments. We may have more, may have less, but we have sunny days and rainy days and all kinds of weather. And the beauty, that invitation is, especially in those moments when we feel more the absence or the less, the hester, right? That I'm with you even in those straits, even in those moments when we may feel like it's more cut off, is then to say, okay, I might not be tuned into it right now, and it might even be a struggle to get there, and I might not have the energy to do that, and that's okay. Like, I can live with that for today, and I can be here tomorrow, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I don't want people to feel pressure that, like, oh, I'm always supposed to be like on, and the program's always supposed to be broadcasting. That would be great. Some of us can live at that level. Not many people.
I rather live at the level, or I rather live where I'm living a life of truth and honesty, whatever that means. So on some days it may mean I'm not really sensing the divine presence so much. The fact that I'm sensing it, though, and yes, with compassion, already shows that I believe I can.
Yeah.
So then on those days when there is more of an experience of an encounter, of a mifgash, wow, it feels so good to be back with you, God.
Beautiful. Well, and that's the real turning also from Purim to Pesach, right? As we go from this time on our calendar when the divine is most concealed or less obviously visible, to the time when the divine is the most visible and the most present, and and that takes place over a month.
Yes.
An extraordinary transformation. Okay. Yiscah, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you and to have you in our space and be part of this community. And thanks to everybody for being here today. Please, if we want to put the links in anymore, but you can go to Yiscah's website to find out on other opportunities to study and deepen your practice with this wonderful teacher. And thank you again. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody again tomorrow, whenever you can join us.
Tada, Mika.